Rain hits the pavement, hard, cold. A man walks through it like the storm belongs to him. His knuckles are torn, his suit is ripped. Blood runs down his wrist and drips onto the concrete floor. Bodies surround him, dozens of them. The air smells like gunpowder and metal. Footsteps echo from every direction. More enemies are coming. He reloads without panic. Slow breath, empty eyes. The kind of calm that only exists inside someone who has already accepted pain. Someone whispers his name like a warning, not loud, almost afraid to say it. Because everyone in that world knows one thing. When this man moves forward, he does not stop. Not because he feels motivated, but because he was built to continue long after motivation dies. But that kind of discipline never begins with strength. It begins with something broken deep inside the mind. Psychological analysis of the character often describes him as someone shaped by loss and emotional fracture. A man who learned to suppress feeling in order to survive an unforgiving world. His life before the chaos was quiet, human, almost peaceful. A life that represented the possibility of normal existence. But when that fragile peace shattered, the brain did what human brains often do under extreme trauma. It simplified the world into one mission. Neuroscientists often explain that under intense emotional shock, the brain narrows its focus, shutting down unnecessary emotional processing so the body can act with pure efficiency. That is the psychological root of the legend. Not anger, not revenge. Focus. Most people believe motivation is what creates action, but neuroscience tells a different story. Motivation is powered largely by dopamine, a brain chemical connected to reward and excitement. It surges when a goal appears meaningful or emotionally powerful. But the problem is simple. Dopamine spikes are temporary. Once the excitement fades, so does the drive. This is why people start projects with energy and abandon them weeks later. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is a system. And the man walking through that battlefield stopped relying on sparks a long time ago. Watch how he moves in every fight. The rhythm never changes. Calm breathing, precise movement, controlled reactions. Every action looks almost mechanical. That is not cinematic exaggeration. That is the psychology of repetition. Behavioral science shows that when actions are repeated enough times, the brain rewires itself so those behaviors become automatic. Neural pathways strengthen through repetition until the body performs without hesitation or emotional interference. This is how elite soldiers train. This is how athletes operate under pressure. And this is exactly how the legend survives encounters that should be impossible. He does not fight with motivation. He fights with conditioning. But the deeper psychological truth is darker. Discipline often grows from emotional detachment. Trauma can train the brain to separate feeling from action, so survival becomes easier. This process is known in psychology as dissociation. It allows a person to continue functioning under extreme stress without becoming overwhelmed by fear or grief. For many people, this response is temporary. For others, it becomes permanent. The legend seems to exist inside that permanent state. Pain arrives, pain registers, but pain does not change behavior. The mission continues. And that is why the violence around him escalates so rapidly. Each action triggers consequences, and those consequences create new conflicts. The world he moves through becomes more dangerous every time he survives another encounter. Psychologically, this creates a loop. Identity becomes fused with action. The man is no longer simply choosing to fight. Fighting becomes the only identity left. When identity and discipline merge, stopping becomes harder than continuing. Even when the body is exhausted, even when survival seems impossible. Yet within that relentless movement, there is something strangely human. Underneath the myth and the violence is a man who once tried to walk away, a man who once believed a different life was possible. That contrast between humanity and unstoppable discipline is what makes the story so powerful, because it reflects a universal truth about human psychology. Motivation comes from emotion, love, anger, excitement, inspiration. But emotion fades, always. Discipline is something different. Discipline survives after the emotional fuel disappears. That is the real lesson hidden inside the chaos surrounding the legend. Motivation begins journeys, discipline finishes them. Motivation is loud, exciting, temporary. Discipline is quiet, repetitive, relentless. One burns bright and disappears. The other walks forward through rain, pain, and exhaustion without asking whether it feels inspired today. And that is why the man surrounded by enemies keeps standing long after others collapse. Not because he feels motivated, but because he trained himself to move forward even when he feels nothing at all.